Oh, she's straight in this time.
Well, you told me off last time for not talking.
Oh, that's a first.
Should we do it together?
Yes, this is Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
Yes. Well,
Me
you
and
did
her.
that. Yeah, me and her.
Let's have a look at the papers this morning. Joining us today, editor of Spike, Tom Slater, and political consultant and journalist Emma Burnell. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
Let's talk about. I presume this is Lord Sainsbury, is it, in the Observer?
Yes, so Labour has had two pieces of news that really show quite a strong progression from what was happening with them 5 years ago. Lord Sainsbury's returned as a donor. He'd previously been a donor under the new Labour years. He'd donated to the Lib Dems when they were sort of an explicitly anti-Brexit party. He's now come back and given £2 million to the Labour Party, which has left meant the Labour Party is now debt-free. They've got a bigger war chest ready to fight the next election. And at the same time, and I think more symbolically important, Luciana Berger, who was hounded out of the party, treated appallingly, really, really nasty stuff. She has rejoined the party, which I think just feels, as a Labour member, like such a relief that she feels able to come back to that, because it was so heartbreaking, the way that she was treated and the way that certain party activists behaved towards her. And it just feels...
That was over the anti-Semitism.
It was over anti-Semitism. There was a lot of misogyny mixed in there as well. And it just feels like, I mean, there's still work to be done, but like a page has been turned, and I'm so glad that she feels able to come back.
Tom, new era for Labour, do you think?
Well, it seems like, I mean, it's been interesting, though, how you hit the rumblings you hear, or the reporting and the briefing you hear from people around Keir Starmer, is that they're trying to really guard against complacency, though. Because one thing that I think isn't really appreciated is they have this incredible poll lead. You think, you know, sometimes over 50% or whatever. But because of the fact that the SNP is still dominating in Scotland, because of the fact that Labour has piled up a lot of support in cities and university towns and whatever, that even that could translate into a quite narrow majority or a minority government and so on. So it's just interesting. I think it's looking at the polls as they are and looking at the mood music and whatever. The one thing we also have to bear in mind is the fact that because of the scale of the defeats in recent years, in terms of in the Red Wall to the Tories and then Scotland to the SNP, it has to be this bigger jump for them to even to get back, which shows you how much of a hole they dug themselves for in previous years, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, 2019 was the worst result since 1934, I think, something like that. I mean, in modern times, essentially. And it was, there is a huge, huge road back. And I think they're absolutely right to guard against complacency, but it's stories like this do help you to build that narrative of being a party that's better ready and able to govern, and better and ready to govern for everybody and not a narrow sector.
Oh, interesting.
Should we look at Save Our Salad? It's in the Sun. We've been talking about this a lot this morning, haven't we?
So this is Mark Spencer, the food minister. Very good name for a food
Well,
minister.
yes, isn't it?
It is.
Not just a food policy, a Mark Spencer policy.
And that policy is to get all of the supermarkets in and harangue them, or at least that's what he wants the Sun on Sunday to report, because of this, again, shortage of vegetables, salads and so on that we've been talking about, and the kind of rationing that's been going on. This, of course, is naturally, in recent days on social media, become a kind of Brexit talking point. A lot of the kind of ultra-Remain types trying to suggest that this is that the bad weather in Spain and Morocco is essentially a product of us leaving the European Union. But nevertheless, it's quite clear that the government wants to get a grip on this for no other reason than the fact that this is not something that you want to be happening on your watch. So hopefully people's salad bags and their tomatoes and their cucumbers...
Yeah, but we were talking to a farmer earlier on, Colin Rayner, who made some really interesting points. I mean, he was saying part of the huge issue is the government isn't listening to them. They've got all the rewilding policies on all the rest of it. People not restocking on livestock and things because they can't afford to do it. You know, we need to move towards making us actually food secure in this country, and we could do that by not exactly deregulating it, but removing some of the regulations.
I mean, I think you can have much better, more sensible regulation, regulation that doesn't just look at 1 year, but looks at, sort of 10, 20-year cycles. These are the things that we need to do. We need to have a sustainable farming industry that actually feeds us with the food that we want. That is not beyond the wit of man. even if that man is a Tory minister. We need to be really thinking long term, and I think there is a combination of working towards energy security and food security. These should be a positive loop that work with each other, so that there can be a countryside that works well into the future. And I do worry that we are losing a lot of our countryside skills, a lot of our countryside traditions and incomes, and these people have every right to be concerned about the things that they've traditionally passed on through their families just not being sustainable. And if you can't, why would a young person these days go into farming?
And the energy crisis is a big part of this story as well, because the smaller proportion of some of the kind of non-seasonal vegetables and fruits that would have been grown in this country are in kind of, again, greenhouses and so on, which are taking up a lot of power, but we're effectively choosing not to do that because they were so concerned about the potential cost. So sorting that crisis out would also help a lot.
Yeah, I think sorting things out at home would be very important. Now, Emma, according to The Sun, you're going to be popping down the local getting 20 Julians and a pint of
Yeah, apparently, Julian Assange, from his prison, has registered, trademarked various things, which include the potential that he can sell branded WikiLeaks cigarettes, WikiCigs, and Wiki alcohol. Wiki alcohol, I'm sure, would be 100% proof. But I'm not sure I would want to be drinking with Julian Assange. I'm not sure I'd trust him while I was less than aware.
Well, it's extraordinary, this, isn't it? I just find it very odd. So, I mean, this is to fund his extradition battle.
Yeah, apparently so. I mean, it's just... I think it's yet another. There's going to be a very small appetite for... There are a group of people who are just absolute Assange fans, will not hear a word against him, and start taking, quite extreme stances on some of the things outside of the interesting work he did around revealing secrets. On other things that he's accused of, and you go, well, if you don't like that, you also don't like this and this. Well, actually, these are completely different, separate issues. There's also questions about the way that he revealed secrets, and other journalists have fallen out with him quite badly about the ways that he did it in such a way that actually put national security in danger.
Yeah.
But ultimately, there'll be a very small market, but it will probably be there. But it just feels like yet another way for Julian Assange to put himself at the centre of the story rather than anything that matters.
Tom?
Well, I think you can be concerned about the kind of, what I would see as the concerns around press freedom that are wrapped up in the whole Julian Assange extradition thing. Really kind of concerning about how, again, if just the US wants something, does our government just have to turn around and provide it, whilst also separating out the man, the things he's accused of, and also his tendency, as you say, to want to be the kind of centre of attention.
I mean, in terms of what they want him over in the States for, I mean, that is legitimate, isn't it?
Well, I think it creates that uncomfortable question, which is the fact that, there are these national security concerns and whatever when you're talking about this kind of journalism. But at the same time, are we to suggest that just because these things are sensitive, that it's in effect kind of illegitimate to actually report on it? These are the hard cases. But that's how you get to grips with this particular issue. And also that that very uncomfortable relationship that the UK government is put in is effectively having to provide him America's say-so. So there are really concerning principles at stake there. But again, it becomes, unfortunately, difficult to argue that in a situation where the man at the centre of it is less than reputable.
Yeah. Tom, should we go back to a food story with you, but something totally different this time?
There's a bit of a theme emerging here.
There certainly is. Over in Food Corner, over there. This is about the president's menus, the US presidents throughout history, and there's some really funny things on these menus, aren't there?
And I'm slightly regretting choosing this because it will put people off their breakfast. But so this is All the President's Menus. There's been a book that's come out looking at what basically the food habits of various different presidents. So Abraham Lincoln, he loved possum dip.
What on earth is possum dip?
I didn't want to find out, so I haven't Googled it necessarily. But one made of possum mixed with things.
The idea of eating possum alone, but blended possum.
And possums are so cute.
He grew up in a log cabin and whatnot. Presumably, it was the sort of fare he was used to. FDR apparently loved nothing more than buffalo tongue as an appetizer. It gets a bit better as it goes along. So JFK loved French cuisine, so he had a French chef cater to all his banquets. And of course, fast forward to Donald Trump, not a big fan of the state dinners, but he would bussing McDonald's.
Yeah.
Various
Yeah.
different.
He did it for his
Huge
guests as
fan.
well, didn't
Yeah.
he?
Well, according to Pinterest, possum dip, ground beef, beans, tomatoes, chilies, onion, garlic, salt.
Oh, that doesn't sound so bad. It's
There's
not
no-
actual
there's
possum.
no possum in it.
No possums were harmed in the
But
making of this dish.
I mean, the implication here is it actually is possum.
Yeah, you would imagine that maybe they
Maybe
kept
in-
part of the recipe
Yeah.
but left the possum bit, which surely no one these days is going to
Yeah. I mean, it can't be an easy ingredient to sauce, I wouldn't have thought.
So.
Maybe it was ground possum back in the day.
Yeah.
Lincoln's time.
And squirrel meat. So there can't be a lot of meat on a squirrel.
Sure, you'd have to get through quite a lot of them, wouldn't you?
You'd think
Which
so.
Is not...
But then isn't it funny when it comes to food, we all get weird over some things,
And
you
not
know,
others.
and not others. You know, it's like now we've gone right off eating rabbit and things.
Yeah, well, I blame Watership Down for that.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
The only time I ever ate rabbit was when I was on a French exchange where I really couldn't say no, and all I could hear playing in my head was Bright Eyes.
Yeah. Oh dear. Now, can we talk music? And Bowie. Because what's not to love about David Bowie? Kick us off on this one, Emma. It's in the Sunday Mirror.
So David Bowie is apparently going to be getting the ABBA Voyage treatment, and there'll be a holographic show, which I am so excited by because he's the one biggest regret of my life is that I never got to see Bowie live. So this will be the next best thing for people like me, and he was such an incredible showman.
Yeah.
Everything he did was about these brilliant shows. I've watched videos of things like the Glass Spider tour and that last Ziggy Stardust show. So I can imagine that if that kind of Bowie-style imagination is put into this, with the imagination that's already gone into Voyager, which has been such an extraordinary success, I can see this being a
It'll be
really
huge.
exciting thing.
Oh, it'll be massive. You do wonder though how eerie it might be as well, because obviously with the ABBA show notwithstanding, you know, these situations where you basically have, you know, artists who've sadly passed away being kind of presented in hologram form. Almost the better it is, the more creepy it becomes.
Yeah.
The better the technology is, the more you get into uncanny
the ABBA
valley.
lot, I've not seen it, but apparently it's like you just forget that it's
They're not there, yeah.
So it's meant to be that good.
Yeah.
Apparently. I did see David Bowie.
Oh, I'm
Did you?
so jealous,
But,
Stephen.
I mean, not a proper concert at the Freddie Mercury tribute concert. So I saw him perform there. He did a couple of numbers. He did a Mott the Hoople track. He did was on with Annie Lennox. And,
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
in his mint green suit. I
That
seem
was a
to recall.
bizarre sartorial choice, yes.
But to be fair, I mean, that was an incredible event because of all the people that we saw that day. I was 18, it's a long time ago. And it was just around George Michael.
Yeah,
and all that
Guns
stuff.
N' Roses.
Guns N' Roses. Yeah, it was just phenomenal. And it was an incredible chance to see all these absolute legends. But people like Bowie and George Michael and Annie Lennox, and it's just sealed the voices.
Yeah.
You really got an appreciation of their talent. Actually.
No, absolutely. I have grown up listening to Bowie all of my life. I remember sitting doing my GCSE revision homework out on the marshes quite near where I live with my little tape recorder playing Heroes. Just wonderful.
Great memories.
A legend.
Wonderful.
Tom Slater, Emma Burnell, thank you both very much
Thank
indeed.
you.
Nice to end on a legend.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There you go.